The Indus River Valley. The word Indus is where the word India comes from, but it's in modern day Pakistan. So the problem with the Indus River Valley is we can't read their writing. We're able to read writing from ancient Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt. We can also read writing from ancient China, but we can't read the Indus Valley writing, and it's extremely frustrating. So we only really know what we can find archaeologically. Cities were built on an elevated earth surrounded by earthen walls and levees to protect from flooding. Each city had some type of citadel that served as a religious and a political center. There's also very little evidence of warfare inside the city. There's not a lot of, we can't find a lot of bodies that had violent death that came to them. We also can't find a lot of weapons. It really is interesting because before we found this civilization, we just assumed that every culture back then was extremely warlike. There is some other weird things too, like there wasn't any just like tiny houses. Like everybody had like at least a decent standard of living for that time period. Their cities appear to be pre-planned on a grid system, which is just unthinkable for that long ago. Also, there's more sites from this civilization than we can find from India or Mesopotamia. So it might have been the biggest civilization in the world back then. But again, we don't know much about it because we can't read their writing system. And there's just a lot of dispute to how that civilization came to an end. But regardless, around the time that the Aryans migrated into the area, the Indus civilization went into a deep decline. And again, I'm just barely mentioning the Indus civilization, but it's another one of those topics in history. It's just absolutely fascinating. I've seen old history textbooks that don't even mention it because it's such a recent, recent phenomenon in history that we really study closely. Now, what we do know about the area is, as the Aryans move in, the Indus decline, and we lose writing across the region. So the Aryans were lighter-skinned, Indo-European speaking people. Indo-European is the language family that English is a part of, and most languages from Europe. So like the languages in modern day India are related to English. They're Indo-European. It's unclear if the Indus Valley was brought down by the Aryans, but it happened around the same time. Historians first thought that the Aryans invaded the area and were violent and, took over. But now we kind of think it was more of a slow process of migration. The Aryans brought with them the caste system, I'll define that in a minute, as well as Hinduism. After the migration and after the Vedic Dark Ages, slowly we start to see writing re-emerge. But the writing is much, much different from the Indus Valley civilization. Again, we can't read Indus Valley writing, but after that big break of no writing, we can read classical Indian writing. Hinduism. If you have a background in Christianity or another monotheism, some of this stuff might be kind of out there. I'll give it my best shot. Hinduism is an extremely diverse faith, and it's not really a monotheism or a polytheism. A lot of people call it a monism. So let me explain that. Hinduism has thousands, literally thousands of gods that are observed across India, but there's still a belief in a universal oneness that everybody is a part of. It's not a conscious entity you can talk to or pray to, like the monotheistic concept of God. Instead, it's more of the universal force that everybody is a part of. All right. Now, the Aryans brought Sanskrit, which is the language that we can first read in India. And a lot of these traditions were written down in books called the Vedas. That's the closest thing I could give you to a Torah or like a Bible for Hinduism is the Vedas, but it's not as important. It's not like you have to read the Vedas to understand the religion. And eventually more writing was written down in the Upanishads, which is another important book. Hinduism has thousands of deities, but most worship the big three. You have Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the protector, and Shiva, the destroyer. Also, the concept of Brahman, with an N at the end of it, is the oneness that every living creature belongs to, which makes Hinduism a monistic faith and not a monotheistic or a polytheistic faith. So, Brahma created the universe. That's really all he did. He's not that important beyond that. Vishnu is the closest I can give you to like a Jesus Christ figure, because he has returned to Earth 9 different times in various forms in order to save humanity. Spoiler alert, at the end of the world, he's supposed to return for a 10th time to save the human race. And that sounds a lot like Jesus to me. Also, Vishnu is the destroyer, but he's not like a bad guy. He destroys things that need to be destroyed. He's often depicted doing this like Dragon Ball Z thing with his hands, which means have no fear. Like I said, this is very different than like a monotheistic tradition, but these are the 3 gods that are usually worshipped pretty universally. Also, you might see Ganesh worship, which is a human with an elephant's head, and he's supposed to represent good luck. So Hindus believe in reincarnation, believing when a person or an animal dies, their soul is reborn into another person or animal. Reincarnation is determined by karma, or the actions you take to uphold the caste system. Here's the hardest thing to understand. Karma in Hinduism is not how you probably view karma. It has nothing to do with good or bad deeds. Karma is how well you uphold the caste system. So the caste system says you have to stay in your caste, whatever you're born into. You have to do the same job and be in the same class as what you were born into. So you're doing the same thing that your parents did, and you can't leave your class. So dharma is your overall duty to the caste system. So your dharma is to do whatever your parents did and to do a good job at it. Every day, the small actions you take in order to uphold the caste system is karma, not necessarily good or bad deeds. Like right now, I am teaching a Zoom meeting. That's good karma for me because my parents were teachers. You could be doing the coolest thing in the world, but if it's not part of the caste, that's not good karma. The Buddhist idea of karma is more in line with probably how you think of karma. Today, Hinduism is spread across the world, but it's still mostly centered in India.